All right, OU's defense, TCU's offense. What are you watching for, Ted? What challenges does TCU's offense bring?
Well, I think this group of skill position guys is outstanding. Like, as a group, I think it's the best we've faced. Now, Deuce Vaughn is the best back. We know how good he is, but whenever you put everything together, their wide receiver group is Savion Williams, Quentin Johnston, Darius Davis. Like, those three guys are about as good as you're going to face all season. They got two really good running backs, and DeMarcado and Miller. Both those guys are good. Miller's like 230 pounds. DeMarcado's a little bit of a changeup. I like liking those two guys to Marcus Major and Eric Gray. They kind of remind me of that type of dynamic between the two of them. Except that, Miller gets more carries for them, the bigger back, 33. Max Duggan's been fantastic. Really efficient with the football. Dangerous in the running game, both in pulling the ball down and running it himself, like in called runs or in pass plays where, he just scrambles and makes something happen. It's been fantastic. Number one quarterback in the country, quarterback rating right now, high 70s completion percentage, super, super efficient. The offense, it's interesting. Now, we all know that Lincoln Riley's brother is there, and it looks a lot like Lincoln Riley's offense at times. There's a bunch of the same things. You'll see split backs. You'll see a lot of the same type of passing concepts. There's some interesting similarities there. There's a couple of things that I think are really interesting that they do. And I saw this a little bit from Nebraska out of a little different spin on it, but they do a split zone with the tight end in a traditional tight end position, and he still comes all the way across the formation. It is the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Like, just whenever you draw it up or look at it, there's no way someone should be able to run that on you. It's almost like a slap in the face that one guy on the very end of the line of scrimmage comes all the way across. But, that makes it really hard because as like linebackers and safeties, when you have a tight end that's off the ball, he's considered to be in the backfield and you key him, or he's at least in part of your keys. When he's on the line of scrimmage, he is out of it, right? He is not in your keys. So whenever he comes across the football from the line of scrimmage, that can make that play a little bit more difficult. And as you know, the last game, some of those split zones and pullers coming across the formation screwed up our run fit. So that's something to look at. They'll get to boot a bunch of different ways. They'll run, I've never seen this before. They'll run boot off of the fake little touch pass to Quentin Johnston. Number one, huge wide receiver coming across, gets everyone's attention. You fake the little touch pass and then run traditional like split zone boot off of that. Kind of an interesting little thing that they do there. Ton of inside zone. They'll do it out of 12 personnel as well. They'll run the split backs. Like I said, the old Lincoln Riley where you have two tailbacks, run split zone, run split lead, run a bunch like boot. They'll have all of that built off of it. So they throw quite a bit at you.
Yeah. The one thing when I'm watching the opposing offense, I always watch the offensive line, right? And the one thing that stands out to me, there's no doubt they're better coached this year. They've got better technique in the run game. They're bringing their hips better. They're straining more. Like, I can tell that they're better coached along the offensive line. However, I'm just going to be straight up. I still don't think they're very good along the offensive line. And how many years in a row have I said that about TCU's O-line? They gave up 5 sacks against SMU. They gave up a lot more pressures. And if Duggan wasn't so mobile, there's probably 8 or 9 sacks in that game. I think just from what I've seen from them that they struggle with pressure.
They struggle with games.
They struggle passing everything off and communicating all of those things. If only Oklahoma had a mad scientist. It's like that's his entire thing defensively. I could really see BV cranking up the pressure in this game, but you got to be careful, right? With all that talent at the skill positions, right? How much cover one, how much man do you want to play when you got guys, like Darius Davis and Tay Barber, and then the monsters outside and Williams and Johnson? Like, how much man coverage do you want to play? Yeah, that it's a fine line, right? But it's clear to me the offensive line's better coached, but they can get a little confused in pass protection and how to pick all of that stuff up. So I'm interested to see how much pressure, especially in internal pressure with games along the defensive line, with kind of some crossfire blitzes, stuff like that. I'm interested to see how much of that stuff OU dials up.
I would expect a very similar game plan to what we saw against Nebraska, right? With the 3-man front, a bunch of different pressures from different angles, bunch of different coverages thrown in there. I would expect with these big wide receivers and the speed that we play a lot of big zone, that we play it like mix some of those exotic pressures with, showing the pressures, and then you get into the drop 8 to try and confuse Duggan a little bit. I think there'll be some spice on the game plan this week for sure.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. Anything else? OU's defense, TCU's offense?
No, I think that's about it. Zone read. They'll run some end over stuff. They'll run some RPO crap with the lineman way downfield from time to time, which you're going to get pretty much every week.
There's a couple clips in the SMU game. The guy's like 8 yards down the field blocking an inside backer. And I'm watching, I was like, oh my gosh, Teddy's going to be so pissed.
It's so dumb, man. We could talk about this every week, but you shouldn't be able to be past the line of scrimmage on a passing play if you're not an eligible receiver. It should be like, that's it. Like within reason. I'm not saying you can't like you can go a little bit over the line, obviously, but you shouldn't be able to have lineman 3, which 3's the rule now, right? You shouldn't be able to even be 3 yards down the field.
They should just make it the NFL rule, right?
Yeah.
You get 1 yard because you're double teaming and like maybe you're getting some movement on the down guy, and that's right. I kind of agree with you on it because some of these clips, because they can't call it every time. So you push the boundaries, right? As an offense with some of this RPO stuff. I mean, there's just and every team that does it is guilty of it. There's just some where guys are both inside backers are engaged and like getting blocked, and they're also trying to play the slant in behind it. It's just stupid. It's ridiculous.
Stupid. Yep. But yeah, I think it's an efficient group. I like some of the stuff they do in the run game. I like the skill players are really good. So I think it's going to be a tough test.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. But as long as I expect Oklahoma's defensive line to control the football game.
Yeah,
I do. It will be worrisome for me if they don't, and it'll be worrisome for me. You got to be good on early downs, right? That was the big issue against Kansas State. They were on schedule all game long. Make Duggan play in 3rd and 6+ a lot.
Yeah.
I know he's playing the best ball of his career, but his offensive line has showed they're not great at protecting in those situations. So get him in those situations.
I think we'll get back to a high number of the TFLs and sacks in this game. I think that's going to be back. At least I hope.
I will be disappointed if it's not. All right. OU's offense and TCU's defense. This is the most vanilla version of the 3-3-5 on planet Earth that Joe Gillespie has implemented. Remember, comes from Tulsa. He's now the new defensive coordinator there at TCU. And I'm just going to be straight up. I think OU can have a massive day throwing the football on TCU. And there's one main reason why. TCU cannot rush the passer. They've got 5 sacks in 3 games. And I've watched every snap they've played defensively. And there's maybe 2 clips where I go, oh, nice move. Like they are try to bull you straight into the backfield. They just don't have a lot of tools as pass rushers. Now the ends, 98, 95, I think they're physically gifted players, but man, they just they don't get pressure on the quarterback. And with what we've seen from Dillon Gabriel up to this point, if he's got time and he's comfortable, man, he's going to do some damage. So if Oklahoma's offensive line plays the way that they need to play in this game, man, I just don't see, with the way that OU's wide receivers are playing right now, I just don't see them not having a big day in the passing game.
Yeah, I agree. I'll tell you the one thing I worry about, though, because whenever you watch like the way to beat their defense in the passing game, because there is a ton of rush 3, drop 8, a ton of it.
Oh my gosh.
It's
so boring.
Yeah, it's what they major in. Dillon Gabriel has had a tendency in those looks to get out of the pocket way too quickly. And whenever you do that, yeah, it's good to get out of the pocket and move laterally and move the zone and move your players into flood one side of that zone with you. But it also makes like you're going to come under pressure quicker, right? Whenever you escape, there's going to be avenues for those guys to spin out and come chase you laterally. He needs to be calm and patient and trust it and stand in the pocket and just step up if someone's coming around the edge, not pull it down and take off running to the outside.
I'm with you. I hear you on that. But looking at that battle at the line of scrimmage, I do think when you watch TCU's defensive line, they do a very good job of straining at the point of attack, right? Hands right in the chest and just really hunkering down. But they do not do a good job of like disengaging off of blocks. It's almost like they're more worried about knocking the hell out of the offensive lineman in front of them than they are about finding the football and making plays, which is okay. But I just don't see them like shocking and then shedding and making plays. I see them just trying to knock the hell out of people and kind of getting buried in those blocks. And this is a little in the weeds, but I think you can make some money on the backside of some of the zone running game. And we've seen them do that. A lot of that stuff designed to cut back with how they blocked it. 98 and 95, when they're on the backside of zone concepts, when they feel zone away, they try to knock the hell out of the guard and play heavy into the guard. And it really kind of gets them washed in my mind. If the backside guard and tackle for OU can get movement on that guy as he's trying to play heavy into that guard, you can create a lot of space in that cutback lane. And just a couple more feet of space allows Eric Gray and Marcus Major to be one-on-one with that free player, right? That free hitter. But if you make more space, then it makes it that much tougher for him to come down, fill in the run, and make that tackle with all that space he's got to cover. So I know that's probably a little too detailed, but I could see that being something that OU can attack in this game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like that. I think you can make some nice plays attacking the overhang player, which if you remember back to the Nebraska game in that first series when Nebraska had the football, where they were just creasing us in the running game, is just like right off the edge and there's like nobody
just cutting it back almost.
Yeah. And it's the same thing because the overhang player is deep. He's a quarter field safety. So he's a deep safety. And he's also responsible for that edge in the run game. But if you attack it like right away, he has to come from depth to make that play one-on-one. And it could be really difficult. And they've had some trouble with that on the back end. So, and I don't know how much we'll see of it, but SMU ran some counter and some one back power, and they didn't break anything huge, but I think there's some yards to be made with that part of our running game as well.
That's because those guys, like on those, and I know exactly what you're talking about, those counters, those powers, like the defensive linemen for TCU, it's like they just bury themselves in the block. They don't try to cross your face, play over the top. Like they don't try, it's like they almost don't want to go make plays. It's bizarre. Now they're very physical and they're physically gifted as well.
That
but
nose, man, he's pretty good. 51.
Okay. So it's 52, right?
Is it 52? Maybe that's right.
52,
yeah, 52.
The big guy. True freshman.
Yeah.
And he's a big dude, 6'2", 320. He's big. But you got me messed up if you think I'm not going out there and burying a true freshman that's playing in the interior. So Matarier, Rame, Murray, they got to take that personally. Like you go out there, and I know the kid's big, like he is, but you got to say, really? You're going to throw a true freshman out against us? You know, you got all that experience there in that interior. They need to punish that young man. I mean, straight up. And now he's a load, don't get me wrong, but he needs to have his welcome to college football game in this game. That's how I'm going to put it.
Yep. Yeah. It is interesting though. You're right. Like in the gap stuff, and even in the pass rush, the 3-man pass rush, it's almost like they're just putting 3 concrete blocks out there that you're saying, like, here's where we're setting up our pawns or whatever. And you're not going to be able, like, we're going to do everything around it on the back end. These guys just aren't going to move. They're going to stay in these exact spots.
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple other things that stand out to me in the back end of their defense. I do think they view the back end as the strength of the team. And I know when you saw this, it probably made you happy. They actually do a really nice job of creating space for each other on the back end when it comes to all the crossers, all the pick plays, rub routes, all that stuff. They do a really nice job of staying on different levels, and they don't pick each other off. So when you see stuff like that, then it becomes, hey, OU's wide receivers, right? Mims, Farouk, who I think is starting to play really fast. Like at that point, you're running those deep overs, you're running those crossers. You just got to win with speed, man. Yep. You got to outrun them because they are very well coached in those route combinations to not pick themselves off, and they have good awareness on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they're pretty good in the zone stuff. I think their backers kind of spot drop at times, so you can find some good windows in behind them. They're not really reading the route scheme. They're just kind of dropping back to a landmark. But one thing, whenever they do bring pressure, they run man-to-man behind it. And I don't know if this is just like, it can't be a design, but they are so late on their pressures. They're totally ineffective.
It looks like it's like the ball snap and someone from the sideline is screaming, "Hey, blitz!"
Yeah,
that's how slow. That's like how delayed it is. It's some of the worst blitzing I've ever seen in college football. It's terrible. Bizarre.
So all you're doing is you're not putting pressure on the quarterback, and you're making the DBs in the back cover man to man, and you're getting nothing out of it. Especially the guy over the slot. He is always so late. And, as a defensive coach, you got to look at it and say, just go line up on the edge. The guy that's covering your man that you keep acting like you're covering is like 6 yards off of him, staring him in the chest. It's blatantly man-to-man, and you're blitzing. Like everyone already knows it. No reason to be late, but that's how they do it. I think whenever they blitz, Mims is going to have one-on-one, and I feel really good that we're going to have time to get the ball off. Mims may have a huge day if they haven't fixed that problem that they've got.
Yeah, it's weird to watch, and just honestly, they have a lot of trouble getting lined up. It looks like the communication there, it always seems like they're in a mad scramble, no matter if the other team's using tempo or not. So with how fast Oklahoma's offense wants to go, would not be surprised if TCU is looking at the sideline with their hands in the air a couple snaps going, what's the call? What are we doing? But we'll see a couple more things. I think Travius Hodges-Tomlinson is a guy that's played a lot of good football for them the last couple of years. He looks hurt to me. You got to attack him. A bunch of pass interference calls in the SMU game. He is not running well right now. He is not flipping his hips well. Like there's something wrong with him physically. And so I think you attack him. You got to attack number one. And then people prepare yourselves, because OU has done a lot of that zone game where Braden Willis is uncertain on a linebacker. There are going to be some collisions between Braden Willis and number 6, Jamoy Hodge. And it is going to be fun to watch. I'm probably going to cringe every time, like, oh, here it comes. But Hodge will come downhill. He does not have great recognition. I have dubbed him great value brand Kenneth Murray, which I think is spot on. But there's one thing he does well. When guys are uncertain in the zone running game or guys are pulling for him in gap schemes, he knocks the absolute shit out of people. So just prepare yourself. There are going to be some big collisions between 9 and 6.
Now, as an offensive coordinator, whenever I see that, the first thing I want to do is I'm going to set the tempo, right? I'm telling Braden Willis, we're running it, right? You're running right at number 6. Go blow him up, right? And then here it comes. You hope you get a good shot, at least a stalemate, right? But because especially if you can win the first one, because the best way to play it from that point on is that pop pass, right? You're coming at him and you just whiff him, swim him, and it's a completion over the top. It's kind of janky, football wise. It's like trying to use someone's aggression against them, but it'll slow him down on some of that stuff whenever he starts to think it may be the pop pass every time you run it. Like that's a good way to attack it. I will say that I think that there's a lot of money to be made on the outside bubble plays, blocking in the slot with our tight ends. They do not seem to fit those very good, and their corners on the far outside are pretty soft.
And they don't seem to react to it quickly.
Yeah.
Some weird things about this defense. I mean, just some weird things.